Hello and welcome to our new series of precision microbes we're calling Tekken 10. My name is Tommy Heffernan.
My name is Ryan Duffy.
Tekken 10, it kind of describes it a bit, Ryan, but tell people what Tekken 10 is all about.
Yeah, it's a deep dive into technical issues that we find relevant, that you guys find relevant, and we're going to try and cover these big topics in less than 10 minutes.
We've got a 10-minute counter starting. So every Wednesday these are coming out. Again, if you want to us to try and cover a topic, this is our first attempt at it, to get the dynamic right, etc. But just comment below and we'll do our best to cover it. So the countdown clock begins now. We've 10 minutes. Ryan, what is today's topic?
Today's topic is weaning, probably one of the most important points in any calf's lifetime.
So weaning the dairy calf. Okay. So we're transitioning them from a monogastric to ruminant. You have a nice drawing of the ruminant, although none of us would win awards for our artwork. Talk to me about what we're trying to do with the rumen.
Yeah, look, baby calves are born able to digest milk-based proteins, and what we're trying to do is transition them away from relying on their own enzymes to relying on the diet of a full monogastric. So that would be more forage-based, more complex diet.
Full ruminant.
Not as easy to break down.
Okay, so think about this. So weaning, some of the things we think about, I think milk, first of all, okay, you said they start as monogastric, 3 to 4 weeks as a minimum, kind of a step down period. That might vary on farm, but we're trying to reduce milk down slowly and gradually as we increase concentrates as well. Okay, so one's going up, one's going down. But the key message for me is slow transitions.
Yes, a nice gradual transition. Very, very important. Why? It's mainly to focus on stress.
And the adaptation of these rumen microbes, I think, as well. Mm-hmm. And we are not creating acidosis, which can lead to leaky gut and other things as well. So what we've seen with research is that when you have slow transitions of milk and you have slow adaptation of concentrates, is you have less impacts on the hindgut and rumen health, which will reduce leaky gut and will also just lead to a smoother transition for the calf.
Yeah. Like, what are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to achieve a doubling of birth weight.
I was going to ask you that question. What is your target? Is it a double birth weight or is it age-related weaning? And you made a very good point to me before we were chatting, before we came on camera, that every farm is different, isn't it?
Yeah, even feeding strategy. You know, if you're going quite aggressive with milk feeding, that will make it more difficult to consume concentrates and forages. So yeah, all of these things are massively important, but ultimately the measure is during that milk feeding process, we're doubling the birth weight.
Okay, and like say, some people will be feeding 8 to 12 litres, some might be going once a day, 3 weeks. But I still think a slow transition reduces leaky gut and leads to better weaning. So target for concentrate feeding at a group level. The kind of industry standard is 1 kilo, minus 2 kilos per calf per day. What do you think?
Yeah, like I'm not too far off that with you. Like the industry standard's 1 kilo. I think a wee bit more. That'll create a bit of a safety net whenever we're talking about feeding groups. Yeah. Massively important, but at the same time, you're clearly on the big bucks here on the 2 kilos per calf per day. But listen, the more concentrates you get in, the far better.
Can you go too high on concentrates? A lot of people talk about starch. I think keep it less than 30%, over 25%. What's your thoughts on starch?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But if we go back to what I have here, my beautiful drawing, digestion, there's 2 components to it in my view. There's chemical and there's physical. The chemical side of things is going to be carried out by rumen microbes. So they're going to ferment those complex things that calves can't digest by themselves. That's ultimately going to develop these papillae, which is important for surface area and absorption of the nutrients from those complex diets. So we definitely need that. And then on the physical side of things, we need to develop the muscle wall of the rumen so that they can actually churn the bloody food around the place.
Okay.
So very, very important. If we're going too high on starch, that's negatively going to impact on those rumen microbes, which is a fundamental aspect of this chemical digestion.
Would I be brave enough to say, and of course precision microbes, you would say this, but we're actually developing the microbial vat over at weaning time. So a functional microbial vat, because we're not feeding the adult ruminant, we're feeding the microbes, which are feeding on the substrates, which lead to the production of volatile fatty acids, etc.
Exactly. Only a proportion of the actual food that we're providing calves are actually being digested by the calves. The vast bulk is occurring here in the rumen by the microbes, as you said. So it's very important. We often talk about, whenever we're weaning calves, the papilla development, the muscle development. Seldomly we talk about what's actually happening in here, the right microbial populations.
Okay, physically looking at our group of calves, we want to look at calves that are full rumens, not overly full, chewing their cud, fecal consistency.
Even dull coats, even simple things like that, you'd notice whenever this is going wrong.
Okay, talk about forages. So this is always an interesting one, and again, Tekken 10, we might be saying something different if we're still here in 2 years' time, but you're always learning. Typically, when we think about fibre going in, straw is the main substrate. My thing always is that, you're actually weaning them out to grass, or after post-weaning, they're often going out to grass, so we're weaning at grass. Grass and straw is not a forage. What about the use of hay and silage here in this period coming up to weaning to adapt these microbes? What's your thoughts?
Practically, silage, easily accessible. A lot of the time we will have excess silage, so that's handy to get our hands on. The problem with it is it can be quite acidic, so it can impact our rumen microbes in a bad way if it's too acidic. Again, we might see that from our silage analysis. Hay, on the other hand, we all are familiar with hay belly. That's whenever we're feeding hay that's really indigestible,
So
really mature stuff.
Older hay made later in the season.
And unfortunately, that's when most of the hay is made. What we're talking about feeding hay to calves, we're talking about young, digestible hays, but unfortunately, a lot of the time it's not made around then.
Okay, we want good forage intakes though. So if you were, again, if I was chop straw, good quality hay, or good quality dry silage would be my kind of tips coming up to weaning. Getting up to 2 kilos a day, transitioning milk over 3 to 4 weeks, even feeding a bit of watering milk around weaning time helps as well. All those things. Clean water. Think about water in the fermentation batch. Just mention that maybe, Ryan, you might cover that.
Yeah, well, water. If we think about when we're feeding milk replacer, that's being diverted into the abomasum. So a lot of that water content is actually not making it into the rumen. Now, what's the practical ramification of that? These bugs, they need water to proliferate and to actually drive fermentation. So we need to get clean water into these guys. It's of paramount importance. You've done a wee bit of work on water and the cleanliness of it. Would you see farms struggling whenever they have dirty water?
I'd say certainly in young calves, and definitely some of the cow work we're doing suggests that clean water is more important than we actually think from a pathogen load point of view. I think the water from a drinking perspective is making sure the troughs are deep enough, the calves can get their noses into them, and that they're at the right height. Okay,
You're definitely not going to be winning anything.
No artistic awards. But the height, cleanly available water, and there's not. They're the kind of key things that and obviously you want to just make sure that the bowls are deep enough. There's a good flow. Flow rate is actually the best way of cleaning water. Okay, so let's look at the time. We have still a bit of time left. This is a good Tekken 10 start.
Very good.
Let's go an overview again. We'll talk about precision microbes just in the story of weaning as well. Kind of key things. I'll recap what I think is key. Slow transition of milk, 3 to 4 weeks. Gradual step down over 3 to 4 days. Getting that right in your automated feeder as well is really important. Aiming to get concentrates in. I never asked you, crunch, nut, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it can be a wee bit of a controversial one. Pellets or coarse crunch. Personally, myself, I love coarse crunch, particularly for the first month. There's a few reasons for that. It increases saliva production and therefore it buffers the rumen. It creates that sort of cud chewing as well, but it's less dusty as well. So I've seen too many issues with eyes and with pneumonia whenever there's a lot of pellets being fed. Doesn't mean that it can't be done right, but at home, if it was myself, I'd be going calf crunch for 4 weeks and then going on to pellets. Okay.
Forages, what we thinking? We want good quality forages. Maybe chopped straw if you can do it. Ordinary straw, fine. But hay and silage not to be discounted if they're the right quality.
100%.
Clean water we've covered. Okay, precision microbes' role in the story is, look, it can be fed through milk to 30 mils a day, but it can also be top dressed on meal. So you can top dress meals. So at weaning time, at this point of weaning, you can top dress for 2 to 3 weeks. I would suggest if you do it this year, try it on a batch of calves. because it's a fermented product, they like the taste of it. So you can put out your meal and just put your microbes on top of it.
So do you think that would hit the 2 kilo mark a wee bit easier?
Certainly, they like the taste of it. It does help. I would be hoping that the calves get up to that kind of 1.5, 2 kilo mark themselves on a daily intake point of view. But what we're really doing is we're trying to reduce that leaky gut issues around weaning time and support rumen health. What's your thoughts?
No, I completely agree with you. I think we've covered it off relatively well there.
Okay, again, if you have another topic that you want us to cover in Tekken 10 each Wednesday, please do. This is our first attempt. Ryan, very good. I'm not going to do the countdown, but we've landed in under 10 seconds. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.